125 kilometers away, this cruiser has such excellent stealth capabilities. Phippidon couldn't help but marvel, but he didn't hesitate and called out to the other squadron's fighter pilots. Enemy ship sighted. Launch anti-ship missiles in 3 waves. Before Phippidon could finish his sentence, the fighter's screen suddenly flashed a fierce red warning light. Oh no, I've been locked by a missile. Me too. It's an air defense missile fired by the enemy ship. Evade quickly. Release infrared flares. Panic-stricken voices from other pilots filled the communication channel. The appearance of multiple air defense missiles threw the fighter squadron into disarray. Boom! A MiG-29K fighter was hit by an air defense missile, exploding into brilliant fireworks in the sky. With countless parts flying off, the pilot didn't even have time to eject, disintegrating along with the aircraft. Another MiG-29K fighter urgently evaded, releasing infrared flares that deceived one air defense missile, and through skillful maneuvering and a bit of luck, successfully dodged another incoming air defense missile. Unlike in the movies, air defense missiles intercept fighters' flight paths in the air. There is no back-and-forth chasing as seen on screens. After dodging 2 air defense missiles, the fighter's radar alert still kept flashing. Seeing the avionics screen, the MiG-29K was tracking 10 incoming targets simultaneously. The radar showed 3 more air defense missiles heading towards him. This brought instant despair to the pilot. The threat efficiency of ship-launched air defense missiles against aircraft is often higher than air-to-air missiles because ship-launched air defense missiles have more warhead explosives and larger guidance heads, unrestricted by the weight limitations of fighter air-to-air missiles. 3 air defense missiles nearly sealed his fate. 3 seconds later, during emergency evasive maneuvers, 1 air defense missile hit him head-on. The missile prematurely exploded, with fragments covering an area of over 100 meters in diameter. Unable to escape, the plane turned into a sieve, its internal precision instruments severely damaged. Canopy pierced. A shard pierced directly into the pilot's neck, severing his carotid artery. With the controls lost, the plane emitted black smoke, spiraled down from the sky, and crashed heavily into the sea, splashing up a gigantic wave of 30 meters. Some pilots successfully ejected before being hit by air defense missiles. But below was the vast sea. As the parachute opened, he fell into the water, greeted by deeper despair. As the sea's waves towered 2 to 3 meters high, he couldn't expect rescue from his fleet's helicopters. He'd be swallowed by the waves and sink into the depths before help arrived. Some pilots, realizing they couldn't escape, directly fired anti-ship missiles at the stealth cruiser, determined to not let the enemy off easy, even if it meant their death. On the Ilova River cruiser, facing the hastily launched anti-ship missiles, the missile launch unit fired again, with air defense missiles intercepting the incoming anti-ship missiles halfway. Out of the 12 MiG-29K fighters, 8 were destroyed in this wave of air defense missile attacks. Of the remaining 4, 3 were heavily damaged, trailing smoke and sparking, clearly incapable of returning to the carrier. Phippidon, his eyes red, watched as his comrades were shot down one after another. He let out an angry roar. "I will sink you." He was already above the Ilova River cruiser, viewing its massive hull, stark on the sea surface. Seeing the cruiser unaffected by the anti-ship missile assault, one intact MiG-29K fighter turned and fled without looking back. Grinding his teeth, Phippidon wanted to release the KAB-500 guided bomb from his weapons bay, but fragments from the previous air defense missile's explosion had damaged the bay's opening mechanism, rendering the bomb unreleasable. To make matters worse, Phippidon glanced at the rapidly dropping fuel gauge and realized that the tank was punctured and leaking. The MiG-29K was notoriously short-legged, nicknamed Airport Guard, with an effective combat radius of only 500 kilometers. At this rate of fuel leakage, he would crash into the sea before reaching the carrier. Thinking of this, Phippidon slapped the control stick, glaring at the Ilova River cruiser, throttled his aircraft to maximum thrust, and dived towards the massive stealth cruiser. He intended to employ kamikaze tactics, not wanting his 12-sortie aircraft to be shot down without even scratching the enemy. Such shameful results would mark him forever on country and Navy's pillar of humiliation. The fighter, at full speed, dove down, the cruiser couldn't compete with the fighter's speed. The Ilova River cruiser made no attempt to evade. On board, its 811-barrel 30mm close-in guns activated, instantly spewing scorching tongues of fire, shell casings scattered like waterfalls. What kind of hedgehog? Phippidon's mind fleetingly thought. In the next moment, everything went black. He lost consciousness, his aircraft shredded by hundreds of 30mm shells. The Ilova River cruiser's second wave of air defense missiles launched. None of the last 3 Country A fighters escaped, including the fleeing MiG-29K, which was blown apart before it could escape the missile range. All 12 carrier-based MiG-29K fighters were annihilated, becoming flaming, dismembered turkeys dropping into the sea. The Devourer-class deep-diving cruiser could carry a large amount of missiles, with up to 200 air defense missiles alone, freely launched without fear of waste. And the fate of these MiG-29K fighters was sealed. They faced what could be considered the air defense firepower of a destroyer squadron, combined with more advanced biological radar compared to phased array radar. Their fate as live targets for the Devourer-class deep-diving cruiser's air defense drills was inevitable. In the tranquil deep sea of Mangjia Bay, a humpback whale is foraging here, but suddenly, it seems to have discovered something and flaps its fins to swim over. But in the deep, dark sea at a depth of thousands of meters, there is a faint electric current sound quietly silent. A steel behemoth is slowly cruising underwater, with 8 octopus-like thick tentacles stirring the water. Humpback whales are high-intelligence animals, and this creature of biological and steel combination leaves it very confused in its large eyes. Gurgle, gurgle. The curious humpback whale swims around the steel behemoth, but suddenly, this steel behemoth slowly surfaces, the 8 tentacles spouting high-speed currents. The humpback whale emits a sound, bewildered by the impact of the current. In the next moment, the speed of the Devourer-class deep-diving cruiser keeps accelerating, ascending from the deep sea towards the surface. Inside the cruiser, more than 100 crew members are busy. Various instruments within the hull emit a faint light, casting on focused and silent faces. Surfacing. Depth 958 meters, 700 meters, 300 meters. Torpedo loading complete, adjusting firing angle, launching preparation. Launch attack precisely 1 minute. Simultaneously surface and complete annihilation. Orders are being conveyed within the cruiser, with the biological radar and biotype sonar installed inside the Devourer-class cruiser operating perfectly. At this moment, on the electronic screen of the sonar radar, more than 100 kilometers away from the Devourer-class cruiser, a dense cluster of light points is displayed, detected by biological sonar, the main fleet of the Country A Navy. Data on the screen jumps every moment. Switches on the console are fluctuated after the Devourer-class deep-diving cruiser surfaces to the preset height. The deep-diving cruiser's 8 octopus tentacles suddenly erect upward, ending in a menacing chrysanthemum-shaped mouth, emitting a continuous string of bubbles, with 8 rocket-assisted flying torpedoes emerging from within the tentacles. In an instant, the rocket-assisted flying torpedoes rise through the water surface. The blazing flames at the rear expand in a circle, soaring like a missile towards the destination more than 100 kilometers away. Rocket-assisted flying torpedoes, also known as anti-submarine missiles, consist of rocket flying apparatus and acoustic-guided torpedoes, primarily carried by rocket to fly. Upon reaching the preset point, the acoustic-guided torpedo detaches from the rocket flying apparatus, enters the water and automatically searches for submarines according to the preset program, damaging submarines within its effective radius, being a formidable weapon against submarines. It's not just this single Devourer-class deep-diving cruiser that initiates the attack. All around the Country A Navy fleet, other Devourer-class deep-diving cruisers already ambushing here have completed surfacing, launching rocket-assisted flying torpedoes for saturation bombing. Inside the Vikrant-class aircraft carrier bridge, the bridge is the brain of the warship, where the warship is controlled and battles are commanded, including the command room, cockpit, and open-air command post. In the bridge, the atmosphere is exceptionally oppressive. Kumar and a group of senior fleet officers wear expressions of stupor, their faces ashen, because they have already received news of the complete annihilation of the carrier aircraft formation. Not a single MiG-29K fighter returned, without even scratching that stealth cruiser of Jekka Group. How can this be? So many carrier aircraft, just gone. Marqueur mutters, wearing a disbelieving, shocked expression. Those were exactly 12 MiG-29K fighters. Since the rise of aircraft carriers in World War II, the theory of aircraft carrier supremacy has become a truth in sea battles. Beautiful country could become the Blue Star dominator solely relying on those 12 aircraft carrier battle groups. Yet cruisers, this outdated warship type long eliminated by the era, are not built by mainstream countries now. But when two collide, the mobility and flexibility of carrier aircraft should bully the foolish large cruiser section. Yet not a single carrier aircraft remains, leaving Marqueur perplexed. Commander, we still have 2 destroyers about to get that stealth cruiser within range, and then the opponent will be ours. Beside them, a naval staff officer speaks, breaking the deathly silent scene. Our destroyer's top speed is 32 knots. He cannot escape. Just sinking that stealth cruiser is worth sacrificing a bit. The aircraft carrier is still there. Later additional carrier aircraft can resume combat. Compared to sinking a cruiser of 40 to 50,000 tons, our victories are bigger. Officers at the conference table chatter, all finding excuses for their failures. But they do indeed feel there is still a chance. Their enormous fleet remains. The destroyer's speed is certainly higher than the cruiser. The opponent now exposed can't break away from pursuit. Just as numerous commanding officers indulge in fantasies, alarm sounds pierce through this atmosphere. The communicator receives a missile attack warning from Allied escort ships outside, promptly sounding the carrier's air defense alarm. Country and Navy crew on the carrier are startled by the alarm sound. Lacking training in usual times, they appear flustered. In the carrier's bridge radar alert workstation, the radar operator's face changes drastically, because the Vikrant-class aircraft carrier also detects incoming missiles, equipped with numerous radar electronic devices, including front and rear radar bases, installed with EL/M2248MF Star solid-state phased array radar, used for air warning and air defense missile terminal guidance, providing strong alert information. The incoming missile's red flash blinks. The radar operator immediately reports more detailed intelligence. Commander, 40 unknown incoming missiles detected, targeting directly our fleet. Upon receiving the news, Marqueur immediately stood up, anxiously saying, "Prepare the air defense firepower at once. Make sure to shoot down these missiles, and find out the launch sources immediately. We are investigating. We have identified the attack sources within 5 approximate areas surrounding our fleet. The latitude and longitude coordinates are." Radio waves continuously transmitted back and forth across the fleet, the maritime radar and air search radar on the warships, capable of scanning hundreds of kilometers. The anti-submarine rockets fired from 100 kilometers away were soon captured by the radar upon rising into the air and then backtracked continuously, allowing us to pin down the approximate location. Seeing the marked missile attack positions on the screen, surrounding them in 5 points, enveloping the India fleet, Marqueur couldn't help but feel a sense of terror, cold sweat seeping from his forehead. His voice even turned sharp. Submarines? Dispatch helicopters to the area for reconnaissance immediately, deploy sonar buoys, have the escort ships and destroyers activate active sonar, find the enemy submarines and deploy deep bombs to sink them. In a rapid tone, Marqueur arranged the battle plan, preparing the fleet for air defense and anti-submarine operations. Alarms echoed across each warship, the 30 main fleet ships of India. At this moment, just like a hornet's nest, escort ships and destroyers constantly sailing outwards, ready for anti-submarine combat, and simultaneously setting up an air defense firepower network to protect the central area of aircraft carriers and supply ships. On those escort ships, short-range air defense missiles were already launched, intercepting incoming missiles. At the tensest moment, 40 missiles were almost visible. The sky suddenly lit up with clusters of firelight, picturing air defense missiles detonating incoming missiles. Incoming missiles visibly reduced, continuously shot down by air defense missiles, easing the whole India fleet. Just a handful of missiles broke through the firepower net, but the destroyers, escort ships, and close-in weapon system defenses, plus the air defense firepower of internal aircraft carriers. Boom! Suddenly, those few incoming missiles made no further intent to penetrate deeper into the air defense net. Instead, autonomously separating mid-air, their front ends plunging into the sea like spears. As rocket-assisted torpedoes entered the water, they immediately activated the auto-enemy-seeking mode. The torpedoes employed sound self-guiding mode. The guiding heads emitted pulse sound signals spreading in the water until hitting a submarine reflected back to lock. At this moment, India's carrier fleet presented a circular grouping mode, among which the enemy Slayer and Aerojet, two 6,000-ton nuclear submarines positioned in front of the carrier fleet, playing a better role in alerting, monitoring, tracking, and attacking tasks. Therefore, the incoming torpedoes targeted not the warships, but aiming at the submarines, not necessary to keep attacking and breaking through the carrier fleet firepower blockade. The two nuclear submarines, enemy Slayer and Aerojet, upon detecting incoming torpedoes, found it too late to react. The position of the two submarines had long been caught by biological sonar. The flight paths of the rocket-assisted torpedoes were calculated precisely, the descended torpedoes precisely located above the two nuclear submarines. As several sound self-guided torpedoes quickly submerged at 50-knot speed, the two nuclear submarines could not evade. They could only submerge to the maximum depth, hoping the torpedoes might misjudge and luck would help them avoid it. Boom! A sound self-guided torpedo exploded in the midsection of the enemy Slayer nuclear submarine. The power of underwater explosions far surpassed those on land as water is incompressible. Faced with such explosions, the enemy Slayer nuclear submarine was utterly powerless. Submarines lacked the massive reserve buoyancy of surface warships, unable to set thick armor and watertight compartments for protection. The section hit on enemy Slayer. The shock waves tore open large areas of its hull, flooded numerous compartments. The submarine lost control, eventually sinking. The whole scene resembled an eggshell, crushed by fingers, unbearably fragile. Inside enemy Slayer, submariners screamed, unable to take any escape measures, directly overwhelmed by seawater. The current depth of enemy Slayer submarine was 300 meters, humans exposed at this means bearing 31 atmospheres of pressure, equivalent to 30 kilograms of force per square centimeter. Each submariner's internal organs were directly compressed, blood gushed from their 7 orifices, bones and muscles squeezed and torn, blood-reddening seawater. The other Aerojet, more lamentable, submariner stayed inside it like cramped up within a sealed steel ball. When the sound self-guided torpedo exploded, it was like someone hammering outside. The intense vibrations and sounds made them distressed. Due to enemy Slayer's early sinking, remaining sound self-guided torpedoes' firepower attracted to it. Up to 3 sound self-guided torpedoes hit simultaneously. Upon explosion, enemy Slayer was bent like a broken chopstick. Midsection broke apart. Seawater surged repeatedly, destroying everything inside the submarine, machinery and humans alike. Both nuclear submarines' complete crew, totaling 208, perished with the submarines. When submariners are vastly more at risk than surface ship crew, there's some escape hope if a warship sinks, however no survival chance when a submarine sinks. Vikrant-class aircraft carrier bridge. When Kumar heard 2 nuclear submarines were lost contact and the sea surface floated with vast oil slicks and debris, he painfully closed his eyes. Enemy Slayer and Aerojet had already perished. However, Kumar couldn't indulge his grief, as the reconnaissance drones dispatched from his carrier had arrived at the rocket-assisted torpedo launch regions, discovering enemy ship movements. Kumar quickened his steps to the big screen in the command center, intercepting the drone reconnaissance view. Over the tumultuous sea, suddenly a section of water arched high like a peak. A steel beast with dark hues displaced thousands of tons of water, just like a whale jumping out, surfacing. Countless seawater, small fish, and shrimp slid off the steel hull as the water drained off. One by one missile launch units' windows opened. The number appeared like a swarm. Anti-ship missiles ignited sequentially, blazing bright flames, leaving pretty tail flames ascending to the sky. The missile launch quantity overwhelming. Missiles continuously launched, tails flames endlessly spraying. Sky, sea, and this warship created a flame bridge. Such a spectacle repeated at 5 locations simultaneously, attacking them with more than 1,000 anti-ship missiles, an absurd number. Witnessing this scene, inside the Vikrant aircraft carrier bridge command room, Kumar and numerous Navy officers had eyes wide open, some legs uncontrollably trembling like shaking chaff. Stealth cruiser, diving stealth cruiser, how can there be so many missiles? Order the entire fleet. Organize air defense firepower immediately. This is a 10-faced ambush aimed at our India's navy. Kumar felt his heart icy cold, his lips quivering. This sentence almost drained all his energy. He then realized that the stealth cruiser they pursued was merely a decoy, aimed to lure them into a meticulously laid trap, as Jekka Group had 5 of such missile arsenal cruisers. Yet he was completely unaware, filled with desires of military merit and honor, charging into others' well-set pocket formation. Though they only had 5 cruisers watching such dreadful firepower, one matched the firepower of 10 destroyers, them not sharing the same power tier. He finally understood why their aircraft carrier fighter squadrons never returned. Such overpowering firepower, how could carrier-based aircraft possibly break through successfully? Commander, there are too many enemy missiles. Our air defense firepower network is hard to maintain. Missiles, they're all missiles. What kind of cruiser is this? What kind of monster have we provoked? In the bridge command room, not only was Kumar, the fleet commander, stunned, but the other senior officers also showed despair in their eyes. The number of missiles exceeded the limit threshold of their carrier group's air defense firepower network, meaning they couldn't defend against such a terrifying missile barrage. Fire all our missiles and rocket depth charges. With so many missiles on their side, there must be a flaw in their own defense. As the fleet commander, Marqueur finally showed his decisiveness at this moment. With fierce eyes, he gave the order, hoping their anti-ship missiles could also destroy the enemy ships. This way, if the opponents can't continue launching missiles, maybe a few of their ships could survive. Through mutual destruction, even if they were sunk, it wouldn't be for nothing. The opponent would also have to pay a price. Under Marqueur's strict orders, realizing the seriousness of the situation, destroyers and escort ships in the carrier group opened vertical missile launch units, launching all their anti-ship missiles to clash with the adversary and see who gets destroyed first. But even with 25 destroyers and escort ships in the Indian carrier group, they could only launch a little over 300 anti-ship missiles, far from matching the 5 Devourer-class cruisers. Yet daring to retaliate counted among India's few shining moments. The two sides were separated by a little over 100 meters, a distance in modern naval warfare that is almost a point-blank range for close combat. Blue ocean waves surged, seagulls soared in the blue sky, white missiles crisscrossed in the air, heading towards each other's rear. Air defense. Short-range air defense missiles launched. Close-in weapon system locked on. Fire fiercely. The massive fleet of the Indian Navy entered full combat readiness in the face of incoming missiles. They desperately formed an air defense firepower network, trying to intercept as many incoming missiles as possible. The Paknan destroyer, an improved Kolkata-class destroyer, was 163 meters long, with a displacement of 8,000 tons, equipped with air defense missile systems, surface-to-surface missiles, torpedo tubes, medium to short-range artillery, anti-submarine rockets, and advanced electronic warfare and communication service systems, making it India's largest destroyer at present. On this 8,000-ton destroyer, Barak 8 air defense missiles with a range of 70 kilometers continuously ascended, and 4 AK-6 36-barrel 30mm machine guns formed a close-in firepower that fired frantically, scattering hot shell casings all over the deck. And ahead, numerous subsonic and supersonic flying fish anti-ship missiles and swordfish anti-ship missiles swarmed in. For X-8 air defense missiles were quickly exhausted, achieving some results with many subsonic flying fish anti-ship missiles shot down by air defense missiles. Boom! 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 But after the air defense missiles were depleted, faced with an endless onslaught of anti-ship missiles, the destroyer began to be overwhelmed. At the bow of the Paknan destroyer, an Otto 76mm ship gun fired continuously, timely supplementing air defense. Though this Italian-made gun had a small caliber, its astonishing firing rate of 120 rounds per minute enabled it to attack surface vessels, bombard land, and also serve in close-range anti-missile and air defense roles. The gun integrated radar, optics, and computers, capable of automatically tracking targets and autonomously controlled air defense. Intermittently, anti-ship missiles were shot down, some detonated by air defense missiles, some brought down by the barrage of close-in weapon systems, and others hit by the 76mm gun. But no matter how strong the Paknan destroyer's air defense was, it couldn't match the sheer number and speed of the incoming missiles. The multi-layered offense and defense system couldn't stop the massive number of anti-ship missiles. A Swordfish supersonic anti-ship missile pierced through layer upon layer of the air defense network, at the terminal stage, exploding at multiple times the speed of sound, piercing straight into the bow of the Paknan destroyer, hitting the firing 76mm gun spot on. The missile's warhead ripped through the steel of the warship. The 76mm gun mount's armor was blown off, and the entire gun was tilted by the impact, as the anti-ship missile continued downward. This 76mm ship gun achieved such a high firing rate thanks to the automatic ammunition feeding system, meaning the ammunition supply bay was fully open with no defensive effect. The Swordfish anti-ship missile smashed into the ammunition depot, and when the 900-kilogram warhead exploded after a brief delay, it also detonated the ammunition depot. Over 1,000 76mm shells went off in sympathetic detonation, making the interior of the Paknan destroyer resemble an erupting volcano. The violent explosion directly severed the bow of the ship, and the 76mm gun turret was blown 100 meters into the air. This decisive strike by the anti-ship missile was like a sword leaving its sheath, severing the bow of the warship with a single slash. Masses of seawater surged into the ship through the breach, causing structural damage that compromised the main structure of the ship, an injury beyond salvage. Simultaneously, in the ammunition depot detonation, both 30mm 6-barrel machine guns on the warship were damaged, the 76mm gun was blown away, and with air defense missiles already expended, the Paknan destroyer's air defense firepower plummeted instantly. Yet at this moment, the incoming anti-ship missiles showed no sign of ceasing. The blockade lost its anti-aircraft firepower, and anti-ship missiles broke through one after another, piercing into the 8,000-ton destroyer. Many crew members trying to escape by jumping into the sea hadn't even reached the edge of the ship when they saw white anti-ship missiles crashing in. The next second, the massive TNT explosions tore their bodies apart and hurled them into the sky. Amidst the continuous explosions, metal twisted, leaving hideous, frightening holes on the hull of the Paknan destroyer, which completely sank into the sea in just 5 minutes and 18 seconds, leaving only a whirlpool on the surface. Out of 457 sailors from the Country A Navy, only 22 survived. The sinking of the Paknan destroyer served as a signal. This strongest destroyer endured the most anti-ship missile attacks and served as the strongest anti-aircraft shield in this sea area. Its sinking at this moment left a huge gap in the firepower network of the India Carrier Battle Group. It was like a tightly knit military formation being pierced, and once a gap appeared, it would quickly expand. Unable to fill the gap in anti-aircraft firepower left by the Paknan destroyer, more anti-ship missiles broke through. The close-in weapon systems and naval guns had blind spots, and the anti-ship missiles rushing in from the direction of the Paknan destroyer's gap made it impossible for many destroyers and escort ships to adjust their positions in time for defense. Boom! The 7,500-ton Kochi-class destroyer was hit midship by a Flying Fish anti-ship missile, severely damaging the radar and electromechanical equipment above. Without radar, those computer-controlled close-in weapons and naval guns lost their flexibility, becoming akin to a blind person. Though manually controlled, humans couldn't match a computer. The Kochi-class destroyer's anti-aircraft firepower was downgraded by several levels, and 2 more anti-ship missiles successfully hit. One anti-ship missile struck the rear of the ship, explosively destroying most of the destroyer's power system, while another exploded at the waterline, causing a huge breach as seawater poured in, making the Kochi-class destroyer list. Even though the captain immediately ordered damage control and pump water for balance, it was to no avail. The warship slowly capsized on the sea surface, with many Country A sailors clinging to the ship's side, falling into the sea with a splash. But after falling into the water, many Country A sailors hadn't even started swimming when darkness suddenly enveloped them. The overturned Kochi-class destroyer covered them underneath, dragging them into the cold ocean amid their desperate screams. The 3,800-ton Brahma-class frigate was right next to the Kochi, witnessing its sinking. At this point, chaos reigned on the Brahma-class frigate because, without the Kochi-class destroyer's air defense, a significant anti-aircraft firepower gap appeared at the rear of their ship. Ironically, their air defense missiles were exhausted, allowing them to watch helplessly as over a dozen anti-ship missiles, like iron pins attracted by a magnet, stabbed one after another into the stern. With over a dozen powerful anti-ship missiles, let alone this 3,800-ton small frigate, even an aircraft carrier couldn't withstand it. The Brahma-class frigate became the third warship to sink in the battle, and its sinking speed was even quicker. The entire warship was blasted into scrap metal, with superstructures completely blown away, the hull torn into several pieces, and it sank into the sea in less than a minute. Yet, the Brahma-class frigate wouldn't be lonely, as several more destroyers and escort ships were sunk in quick succession. The overwhelming missile barrage left their carrier battle group's firepower network utterly defenseless. And when the gap appeared, the Vikrant aircraft carrier, tightly protected at the center of the fleet, inevitably became the target of attack. A Swordfish anti-ship missile passed through the carrier's air defense network, embedding itself into the carrier deck. The steel strength of a deck capable of accommodating the takeoff and landing of aircraft seemed impressive, but it was insufficient against the armor-piercing warhead of the Swordfish. Pierced through the flight deck, then continued through the hangar, engine room, and finally exploded in the desalination chamber. The massive explosion shook the Vikrant aircraft carrier repeatedly. Flames erupted from within, and thick smoke billowed from its flanks. On the aircraft carrier's bridge, Kumar hit the edge of a table amid the tremors, gashing his forehead, causing blood to flow freely. "Never mind me. Go check on the carrier now." Marqueur shoved the medics aside and looked out from the bridge. Over the sea, escort ships and destroyers were either sinking or heavily damaged by anti-ship missiles. The battle had only just begun, yet 7 or 8 warships had already sunk in quick succession. Meanwhile, the assault of anti-ship missiles persisted relentlessly, with no end in sight. Kumar felt despair but quickly remembered something, staring intently at the electronic screen. The anti-ship missiles counterattacked by their carrier fleet not long ago were now reaching the 5 stealth cruisers, becoming his last hope, like a drowning man catching the final straw. "Sink into the ocean with us." Marqueur's face contorted with rage. He knew his fleet would be annihilated here today, but he intended to drag those cruisers down with them. However, the footage relayed from the drone reconnaissance perspective shattered Marqueur's last bit of hope. Above the Azure Sea, a Devourer-class deep-diving cruiser had ceased firing anti-ship missiles, and instead launched numerous air defense missiles. In an instant, hundreds of air defense missiles soared into the sky and intercepted from over 100 kilometers away. One after another, the air defense missiles exploded the anti-ship missiles attacking from India's navy, but some anti-ship missiles broke through the interception, further approaching the Devourer-class cruiser. On the bow of the Devourer-class cruiser, the deck split open and a turret rose up. It was a twin-mounted 203mm naval gun, spewing large tongues of fire and firing specialized air defense high-gun shells, creating a barrage to intercept the incoming missiles. This naval gun had a larger caliber and a slower rate of fire, but its air defense effectiveness was excellent. The powerful air defense high-gun shells, over 100 kilograms each, struck down many anti-ship missiles, and only a cruiser with such tonnage could support such a large-caliber naval gun. When there were still anti-ship missiles that broke through, at the bottom of the cruiser, 8 tentacle-like living arms suddenly extended from the sea, spraying clumps of acid and webs from their tips. The acid splattered like a shower, with drops of acid like a rain of arrows forming a curtain of rain. Upon contact with the anti-ship missiles, it would corrode the missile's body, damaging the precise equipment and gyros inside, causing the missile to be destroyed mid-air. The webs would automatically expand upon contact with air, stretching over 1,000 square meters, enveloping the incoming missiles and causing them to lose balance and plunge into the ocean. Air defense missiles were responsible for long-range defense, the 203mm twin-mounted naval gun for mid-range, and the acid and webs for close-range defense. By this stage, almost no anti-ship missiles could break through. Finally, only one stray anti-ship missile successfully broke through the firepower net, but waiting for this single India missile were 8 full sets of 11-barrel 30mm close-in weapon systems. A close-in weapon system adjusted its angle, and the 11 barrels rotated, inundating the lone anti-ship missile with a dense barrage. Such scenes were unfolding on every Devourer-class cruiser. Such a warship! Such a warship! Kumar staggered, his face deathly pale, all the strength drained from his body, unable to utter a complete sentence. He believed the cruisers, vulnerable and able to be taken down with a single missile, surprisingly had such a complex and sophisticated firepower defense system while carrying so many missiles. Marqueur didn't know that the 5 Devourer-class deep-diving cruisers carried a total of more than 3,000 various missiles and torpedoes. Due to a streamlined crew, fuel, and vast machinery, the Devourer class was a true arsenal ship, focusing on firepower supremacy, capable of loading a large number of missiles and ammunition. If Marqueur had launched all his missiles at one Devourer cruiser, he might have succeeded in breaking through the firepower net. But there are no remedies for regrets in this world. The aircraft carrier group's anti-ship missiles were expended, completely losing the ability for a second wave of attack. Commander, the damage control team cannot extinguish the fire. The fire is spreading to the ammunition depot. We opted to flood sections of the ship, and now the number 1 ammunition depot is unusable. Marqueur was brought back to his senses by the urgent cries. He raised his head, not looking at the smoke-blackened face of the damage control officer, but staring blankly at the sea ahead. At this moment, the sea was filled with India's main battleships, either submerged in the ocean or engulfed in flames, the fire seemingly igniting the sea, with countless Navy soldiers floundering in the seawater. The grand fleet of 30 warships that came in overwhelming force now had only a mere handful of surviving ships. The entire sea was nothing but burning flames, sunken steel giants, roaring white missiles, broken bodies, drifting with the tides. Our Navy, it's over. Muttering to himself without realizing it, Kumar's tears moistened his face, crying bitterly. India's Navy, painstakingly built up over decades since the country's founding, was utterly destroyed in one fell swoop. But the ocean does not believe in tears, nor does it favor cowards. This is a game for the brave. His tears seemed to toll the final death knell for India, as in his vision, several anti-ship missiles were rushing towards the Vikrant-class aircraft carrier. Now, the entire India carrier battle group is on the brink of destruction, with the escort ships and destroyers bearing knives either sinking or in the process of sinking, already incapable of protecting the Vikrant-class aircraft carrier located within the core circle. Exposed in front of powerful anti-ship missiles, the carrier's own feeble defensive capabilities are completely laid bare at this moment. The Vikrant-class aircraft carrier is still struggling, but despite the efforts of the 4 Auto 76mm ship guns and 3 AK-636-barreled 30mm machine guns, the massive size of the Vikrant makes it seem helpless in defending against the anti-ship missiles shooting like sharp swords. A white swordfish anti-ship missile traced a graceful arc, slipping through the dense interception barrage above the Vikrant-class aircraft carrier. The swordfish anti-ship missile headed downward from the deck of the carrier, piercing the enclosed smokestack, smashing through the sailors' quarters and finally, with a bang, lodged in the tail of the carrier. The warhead blinked with a red light, and after a brief delay of several seconds, exploded with a boom. The 900-kilogram warhead of the swordfish anti-ship missile displayed terrifying power, the explosion directly bursting through the bottom of the carrier, creating a massive gap at the base, allowing the sea to rush in furiously. Even more terrifying is, this explosion also caused damage to the carrier's propeller. The speed of the carrier visibly declined, dropping rapidly from over 20 knots to a snail's pace of 5 to 6 knots. Having lost its maneuverability, the Vikrant's last bit of escape hope also completely reached zero. At 8:03, a flying fish anti-ship missile exploded in the aircraft hangar of the carrier, the shockwave destroying the spare aircraft parts kept here, also igniting the aviation fuel stored in the hangar, with raging fire spreading through the hangar. The custodians who tried to approach saw the ever-rolling tongues of fire and turned around in fright to run. In just 3 minutes, the Vikrant-class aircraft carrier was hit by 5 anti-ship missiles in succession. This 43,000-ton medium-sized carrier was bombed to a gruesome state, with roaring flames and thick smoke everywhere. However, the carrier's own buoyancy remains, with a large number of watertight compartments. The Vikrant is 260 meters long, 60 meters wide, with a height equivalent to a 14-story building, and these 5 anti-ship missiles have not yet sunk it. But the massive explosion has already destroyed most of the defensive weapons on the Vikrant-class aircraft carrier. Now the Vikrant is like a stripped naked woman, at the mercy of the Jekka group. Commander, retreat, retreat quickly. We have lost this naval battle. Please preserve yourself to fight another day. In the bridge command room, several naval commanders were dragging the wailing Kumar, forcibly pulling him out. These officers were of high caste in India, and they didn't have the resolve or courage to go down with the ship. You bastards! Ruined me, my lifetime's reputation. Kumar cursed loudly, making a symbolic struggle, his face showing a reluctant expression, allowing himself to be dragged out of the bridge command tower. Upon reaching outside, seeing the tragic state of the carrier, with severed limbs of corpses everywhere and the deck dyed red with blood. Boom! An anti-ship missile exploded on the deck, consuming many naval soldiers fighting for lifeboats with flames of the explosion. The shockwave flung the battered naval soldiers into the sea, leaving a 20-meter gap on the deck steel curling outward like a trumpet flower. A segment of a severed arm was blown off by the shockwave and landed at Kumar's feet. The charred severed limb, coupled with the cold wind laced with a thick bloody smell at nostril, made him shiver uncontrollably, with a chill spreading all over his body. Retreat! Let's retreat quickly, Kumar shouted, breaking free from the support of a few officers, running ahead to untie the lifeboat ropes. The officers were momentarily stunned, exchanged glances, and hurriedly followed. Commander, wait for me. I haven't boarded yet. Outcast, how dare you try to board? Get lost. If you want to survive, find your own way. Row fast. Row fast. It's dangerous near the carrier. Let's get away from here first. A group of senior naval officers scrambled onto the lifeboat. A few people occupied a lifeboat and desperately rowed away from the doomed Vikrant-class aircraft carrier, shouting and driving away other naval soldiers who wanted to board. There are so many spots on the boat. Why won't you let us on? We're all going to die, and you still act high and mighty, completely ignoring us. Ignore them. Board the boat. I don't want to be blown up. The naval soldiers saw this scene, their eyes burning with anger in the face of death. They also stopped caring about the difference in status. Forcibly all rushed onto the lifeboat. How dare you? A senior officer pulled out a pistol and fired at the crowd. Bang bang. In the cries of agony, several soldiers fell down. This act not only didn't frighten the naval soldiers but instead further incited their wrath. Fight them! Many Indian naval soldiers shouted, taking advantage of the officer running out of bullets in the magazine, angrily rushing onto the lifeboat, punching and kicking the senior officer who just shot, then throwing him into the sea to drown. The other senior officers did not escape either, also becoming punching bags for these naval soldiers, crazily beaten. They are not just hitting senior officers because the space on the lifeboat is limited. Soon the naval soldiers also started infighting, fighting fiercely over the limited space, even shooting with the scene turning bloody. In this chaos, Kumar, the fleet commander, found no one cared about his status anymore. His old arms and legs couldn't compete with others, and he was pushed off the lifeboat and fell into the sea. Luckily, there was a floating rubber tire right next to him, which he held onto tightly, carried away from the vicinity of the Vikrant-class aircraft carrier by the waves. Scenes of chaos like this were happening everywhere on the Vikrant-class aircraft carrier, including other warships. The corrupt military discipline and regulations of India's army were not just confined to the army. The navy was the same. This outbreak made the death toll even higher, with many not dying at the hands of the Jekka group's attack, but at the hands of their own. More anti-ship missiles came in because now on the sea surface, all other Indian warships had sunk, leaving only the Vikrant as the sole target, with all anti-ship missiles homing in on it. The Vikrant also became the most devastated warship of this naval battle. Its resistance to sinking brought even harsher blows upon itself, causing many Indian Navy soldiers on board to suffer ongoing bombing from anti-ship missiles. It's hard to determine precisely how many anti-ship missiles hit, whether for the Indian Navy soldiers or the attacking Devourer-class cruisers. Only wave after wave of terrifying explosions could be seen ravaging the aircraft carrier, from the bow to the stern, from the island to below the waterline, repeatedly tormenting the high-strength steel of the carrier. Afterward, according to the Navy soldier who jumped into the sea near the Vikrant, he held a lifebuoy and saw at least 13 explosions occur on the Vikrant-class aircraft carrier. Later, during a media interview, this Navy soldier said tearfully, "When the Vikrant sank, its entire body structure was completely deformed. I couldn't recognize its shape anymore. What delivered the fatal blow to the Vikrant-class aircraft carrier was an explosion from the fuel depot. An anti-ship missile penetrated the aircraft carrier's oil depot, igniting the heavy fuel on the carrier, leading to a disastrous explosion. The massive explosion even lifted the carrier out of the water, and the raging flames turned the Vikrant-class aircraft carrier into a fiery coffin afloat on the sea, with sailors engulfed in flames screaming and jumping into the sea to escape. The entire warship burned on the sea surface for a long time, and when several Devourer-class cruisers arrived, they witnessed the Vikrant-class aircraft carrier engulfed in flames and smoke, slowly capsizing and sinking into the icy sea. Even when the carrier's island masts sank into the water, one could still see the unextinguished fire burning inside the Vikrant through the sea surface. Like a red meteor falling into the sea, illuminating the surrounding sea area until it was completely consumed by the deep ocean. This domestic carrier, which India hailed as its pride, sank with only 87 out of 1,400 Navy soldiers on board rescued. Among the rescued was Kumar, the fleet commander. He was lucky to survive the battle, and when Jekka Group soldiers found him, he was already semi-conscious, requiring significant resuscitation to survive, becoming the highest-ranking Indian officer captured by the Jekka Group. Several hours later, aboard the arriving Ilova River Devourer cruiser, Peng Hongtai stood at the bow, looking around. All over the ocean were Indian Navy soldiers calling for help after falling into the water, with Jekka Group's rescue speedboats rescuing them one by one. Numerous bodies also floated on the sea surface, constantly washed by the waves. The blood attracted some foraging sharks, but humans were not preferred food for sharks, who would often take a bite, find the lack of fat displeasing, and leave swinging their tail fins. Many more soldiers who had jumped into the sea couldn't even have their bodies found, having sunk into the ocean, and could only be listed as missing. On site, several dead Indian warships belly-flopped on the sea surface, flipped over like dead fish, while the Devourer cruisers were using torpedoes to ensure their complete descent into the sea. At this time, it was just 11:20 a.m. The sun was blazing, but this sea area felt like one had arrived at the Nether River, with the flowing bodies giving a bone-chilling sense of cold. A speedboat came up to the side of the Ilova River, bringing one person aboard. That person was none other than Kumar, the fleet commander. Kumar was terrified. He had once boarded a beautiful country's nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, but when faced with the Devourer cruiser, he felt the combination of biological and steel arsenal ship brought a shock comparable to a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. "I am Peng Hongtai, commander of the Jekka Group's First Fleet, and this might be our first interaction, also possibly the last." Peng Hongtai turned around and scrutinized Kumar, the commander. Now, Kumar's splendid admiral uniform was soaked by seawater, with disheveled and wet hair, contrasting starkly with Peng Hongtai's neat military attire, making him appear very downcast and embarrassed. The escorting soldiers removed his exquisite sidearm from his waist and handed it to Peng Hongtai, leaving Kumar glaring in anger, yet powerless. Peng Hongtai examined it, handed the gun to the soldier next to him, then pointed to the sea. "Speaking of this battle, I have to thank you for your cooperation, without which we couldn't have completely annihilated your fleet." Upon hearing these words, Kumar's face turned extremely unpleasant. He regretted deeply, knowing that if he had known the might of the Devourer cruiser earlier, he would never have ventured with the carrier fleet to court death. But now it's too late to say anything. Your Excellency is merely relying on novel warships for a brief moment of triumph. Once your ships are thoroughly researched, and when the beautiful country's dual-carrier battle group arrives, it will be the day of your demise. Not losing composure despite defeat, Kumar knew his fate wouldn't be great, so he spoke unyieldingly. "Many have also claimed to want to crack our Mecca, yet until today, no force has presented any results." Peng Hongtai smiled and shook his head, paying no heed to Kumar's impotent rage. Leaning against the ship's side, the sharp bow cutting through waves, he continued, "As for the dual-carrier battle group of the beautiful country you mentioned, I rather look forward to crossing swords with them. Your India's navy is too lacking in combat prowess. I wish to gauge the quality of their beautiful country, hailed as Blue Star's top navy." Arrogant. Watching Peng Hongtai's spirited demeanor, Kumar was already filled with regret. He could only hope that the beautiful country could teach the Jekka group a lesson, destroy their stealth cruisers. Otherwise, henceforth in the Indian Ocean and Southeast Asia sea areas, all countries would have to bow to the Jekka group, subject to their gunboat diplomacy threats. Take him below deck, but don't mistreat him. After all, he's the highest-ranking Indian officer we've captured. Let's see if India is willing to pay a ransom. Peng Hongtai waved his hand, losing interest in continuing the conversation with Kumar, his defeated subordinate. Looking back at the sea, where the blue sky met the sea surface, surrounded by shipwrecks and bodies, demoralized Indian wounded and survivors forming a sharp contrast with the excited Jekka group Navy soldiers. "Commander, the battle results have been compiled." At this moment, the deputy came over, holding a statistical report for Peng Hongtai to review. Peng Hongtai lowered his head to read the document, then lifted his gaze toward the distance, the salty sea breeze brushing his face as he saw the surrounding 6 majestic Devourer-class cruisers. A sense of grandeur arose within him, and he spoke loudly to the deputy, "Write for me, to honor the great Commander Su. Our first fleet successfully ambushed India's carrier fleet in the Bay of Bengal at 7:24 a.m. on March 12. In this engagement, we sank the Indian Navy's Vikrant-class aircraft carrier, Kolkata-class destroyer, Rajput-class destroyer, Chennai-class destroyer, Shivalik-class frigate, enemy Slayer nuclear submarine, totaling 30 enemy ships, achieving complete destruction of the enemy fleet. After this battle, India's Navy's main forces were utterly lost. So our group Navy can now turn the Bay of Bengal into an inland sea, intimidate the Southeast Asia sea area, and dominate the Indian Ocean, becoming the new ruler of these seas." The deputy meticulously recorded every word said by Peng Hongtai, then ran off excitedly to transmit the tidings, broadcasting this victorious news back to the Jekka group via radio. India. In the conference room of the Navy headquarters building, the Minister of Navy, Jiayong, stared blankly at the document in his hand, his face pale without a trace of color, his body trembling uncontrollably. It's because the significance of this document in his hand is too heavy. The document lists one by one the main battleships that once represented the power of the country and navy, all now sunk. The naval forces that India painstakingly built over decades were all buried in Mengjia Bay. Opposite Jiayong, Prime Minister Singh was also present. Upon discovering the traces of the stealth cruiser, before the Vikrant aircraft carrier launched its airstrike against it, the carrier fleet transmitted the news, so Singh had rushed here, anxiously waiting for the progress of the sea battle. However, Singh's anxious wait was met with a nightmare-like bad news. The carrier fleet was annihilated. The main battleships all sank. Singh's eyes widened more and more, seemingly unable to believe this news. He instinctively stood up, but felt his legs were as weak as noodles, powerlessly slumping back into the chair. "Prime Minister, please restrain your grief. Your health matters." The side of Minister of Defense, Vipu, quickly came over to support him. "Navy? How exactly does the Navy fight?" Viciously pushing Vipu away, Singh roared, the spray of his rage hitting Jiayong and Vipu's faces. "Prime Minister, Jekka Group stealth cruisers are not just one, but a full 6. They are equipped with powerful missile firepower, are indeed cruiser arsenal ships, and are capable of submarine diving. It's a well-planned trap against our country a navy." Jiayong's voice was hoarse, not only saddened by the annihilation of the country a navy, but also by his future career. "Why did you fail to detect anything unusual? Why were you so easily trapped? The taxes of 15 billion citizens are for you to fight wars this way." Singh couldn't control his fury. It was 30 main battleships, with a total tonnage of over 230,000 tons. The entire assets of the country and navy were in there. To suddenly be told that the main navy force was sunk, his naval assets completely destroyed, how could he accept this? Ordinary people would lose sleep over losing a few 100,000 yuan, let alone the Indian Navy losing warships, each costing tens of billions, along with elite soldiers aboard. Without this massive fleet, India instantly fell from a naval power dominating the Indian Ocean to an insignificant role there. Even the navies of neighboring small countries could bully them. Prime Minister, we didn't know JECA Group was hiding such information. Those cruiser arsenal ships can fire hundreds of missiles and have powerful anti-air and underwater capabilities. We were deceived by JECA Group. This isn't a battle fault. Jiayong was quite innocent, trying hard to dissociate himself. How could he have known that JECA Group's stealth cruisers would be so terrifying? According to battlefield intelligence, those cruisers could hold several hundred missiles, had powerful diving and stealth abilities, and absurdly strong air defense firepower, and there were a terrifying 6 of them. If he had known the data about those stealth cruisers, he definitely wouldn't have decided to send the main Navy force to their doom. Damn, are you saying it's my fault? Singh erupted in anger, slapping Jiayong across the face. The crisp sound of the slap echoed, leaving a conspicuous red handprint on Jiayong's face. Vipu discreetly stepped back 2 paces, afraid of becoming the next target of Singh's anger. Having been slapped, Jiayong lowered his head to defend himself. Prime Minister, it's really not my command error. It's just, enough. I now announce the removal of your positions as Minister of Navy and Navy Commander. You have buried the powerful navy we built over decades. You are the sinner of all India people. Now, immediately take him away. Singh gritted his teeth and spoke. Now that the country and navy was annihilated, someone must take the blame. Jiayong didn't proactively take responsibility and wanted to dissociate himself. Did he expect the Prime Minister to get blamed by the entire nation in his place? Although the final decision to send the main naval force to pursue JECA Group stealth cruisers was made by him, he was the Prime Minister. How could he be wrong? He was merely deceived by those incompetent fools below him. Soon, military police came in, taking Jiayong out of the conference room as he shouted protests. Prime Minister, we should consider the aftermath arrangements. Whether to continue the war with JECA Group, whether to fight or make peace, it needs your decision. Vipu stole a glance at Singh, who was flushed red, carefully reminding him. Singh lay limp in the chair. Hearing this, his temples throbbed painfully. Last time JECA Group directly rejected our peace proposal, that Liu Yingying even mocked us, demanding we cede the Andaman Islands. Now our navy has been destroyed. Who knows what outrageous demands they'll make. Our East District 6 states surely can't be kept. More maritime interests will be lost, and they might even demand compensation for defeat. As Singh spoke, he grew angrier, slapping the table. It's all because of Jiayong the fool. If it weren't for him, we wouldn't be so passive. Given JECA Group's usual greedy behavior, Singh could imagine how arrogant they would be when they humbly begged for peace, how JECA Group would extort them, forcing India to be blackmailed. We have nuclear weapons. The JECA Group certainly won't dare to push us too far. Vipu proposed a bold idea. Their country A was not like those small countries. They actually had nuclear weapons in hand, as well as ballistic missiles with a range of 4,000 kilometers. The JECA Group is famous for underground engineering, plus their genetic warriors. Singh shook his head. Using nuclear weapons is impossible. The greatest power of nuclear weapons is their deterrence. They have more than 100 nuclear weapons, but if they actually use them against the JECA Group, the waves would be bigger than the annihilation of their navy. Surrounding countries might even be drawn into war. Moreover, the JECA Group's combat effectiveness is there. Their underground engineering cannot bomb much, plus their genetic warriors. Once nuclear bombs are used, both sides would go for a fight to the death. The powerful army of the JECA Group will directly invade their territory and massacre civilians. The Navy will bombard coastal cities, and those genetic warriors will carry out assassinations domestically in Country A. He doesn't know if the JECA Group will perish, but surely their high officials will completely be dead. Ultimately, the war between them, Country A and the JECA Group, is still a face-to-face military competition. Even if the main force of the Navy was wiped out, the opponent didn't use insidious means like gas bombs to destroy, but fought on the battlefield. At this point, using nuclear bombs is unrealistic both in terms of public opinion and reality. Then we can only continue the war with the Jekka group, but now our navy is annihilated. How can we keep fighting this battle? Vipu, the Minister of Defense, was full of distress. The navy was their greatest reliance. Now that it's gone, should they rely on the army to fight the Jekka group? To be honest, this Minister of Defense is clear about the low quality of their own army. Saying it's trash would not be an exaggeration. They can't even understand logistics. How could they use it to fight Jekka Group's army of tigers and wolves? Just look at the record of the Eastern District 6 states. Tens of thousands of troops were swept away by 50,000, surrendering tens of thousands. Hundreds of thousands of troops were stuck at the Siliguri corridor, unable to advance an inch, simply staging a fake military drama there, symbolically firing a few shots daily, taking the high-levels orders to attack as mere whispers, unwilling to make brutal sacrifices for a strong assault. As the Minister of Defense, he knew about this clearly, but due to the national conditions of country A, he could only turn a blind eye. After all, in a stalemate, he could also profit from logistics. We can only rely on the beautiful country. Isn't there dual carrier battle group coming? We can opt to lease the Andaman Islands to the beautiful country. Singh came up with a sudden proposal. Magnificent! Vipu's eyes lit up. Now that their country and naval main force was annihilated, there was definitely no way to control the treasure land of the Andaman Islands. It would fall into the hands of the Jekka group. But if they leased it beforehand to the beautiful country troops stationed, there will be no worry of not enticing the beautiful country. The beautiful country loves to intervene in geopolitical affairs, and this time they dispatched a dual-carrier battle group precisely because the strategic position of the Malacca Strait is threatened by the Kra Isthmus Canal. The Andaman Islands are the iron gate guarding the Kra Isthmus Canal. If the beautiful country garrison here, they can dispatch troops to block the Kra Isthmus Canal anytime, threatening the Jekka group's western coast of territory, equivalent to putting a sword to the Jekka group's neck. By then, the Jekka group will not be able to endure and will definitely start a war with the beautiful country. We draw the beautiful country into the fray, pull them into our camp, and let the beautiful country battle the Jekka group. The beautiful country's naval strength is globally first. The Jekka group definitely won't be able to fight, thus they will still lose the battle. As allies, we can also reclaim our interests, take back the Eastern District 6 states, and maybe even get war compensation from the Jekka group. The more Singh talked, the more feasible the plan seemed, letting the big boss of the beautiful country help them turn defeat into victory. Just as Singh's face showed a look of self-satisfaction, the door suddenly slammed open. A naval staff officer hurriedly ran in and urgently reported, "Minister, Prime Minister, it's bad news. The dual-carrier battle group of the beautiful country sailed near the Sri Lanka Colombo port area, heard about the battle result in the Bay of Bengal Sea area. They announced that they are not coming to Southeast Asia Sea area to conduct exercises with the Thousand Island Strategic Alliance countries anymore. Now the dual-carrier battle group has already turned back." Vipu's eyes widened, and he looked incredulous. What, the dual-carrier battle group of the beautiful country ran away? Quickly contact the beautiful country, we still have important cooperation with them. How could they just run? Shit. Singh was so angry. He had a stroke. His lips trembled. What a shame. These Angsa pirates can't change their pirate nature. When they see something wrong, they run away, to think they claim to be Blue Star Dominator. The more he talked, the angrier he got. Blood rushed up to his head, and he fainted from anger. Prime Minister. March 12th. Just on the day the Bay of Bengal naval battle ended, the news of country and naval main forces being completely annihilated spread like a tsunami across the world. The last battle of Country A's navy, Jekka Group sank 30 main battleships including Country A's aircraft carrier, with Country A's elite navy all wiped out. The largest naval battle of the 21st century broke out. Jekka Group's stealth cruiser fleet ambushed Country A's aircraft carrier formation, bringing disaster to Country A's navy. Counting the Jekka Group's new-style cruiser Arsenal ship, military experts take you into a look into the Jekka Group's secret weapons. All major global media, without exception, were broadcasting the results of the Bay of Bengal naval battle. The sensational heat exceeded far more than the Los Angeles Olympics, as this was the largest naval battle since the end of World War II, and the combat damage was so astonishing. Coupled with the new-style cruiser Arsenal ship appearing, the event burst with topics. On global social platforms, Douyin, Zhihu, Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Bilibili, at the relevant news below, the level of discussion was constantly being refreshed every minute. Oh my God! An unbelievable victory. A dream score of 0-30. Can't believe humans could fight this. Country A's navy is all idiots. I just want to kick their butts hard. They managed to make the sea battle so ugly. The Jekka Group had an early plan for the Bay of Bengal naval battle. They hid their new-style cruiser Arsenal ship until Country A's navy took the bait, seizing the opportunity to wipe them out in one go. Forget about hatred from a military perspective. Does this naval battle prove that the theory of carrier supremacy is outdated, as the Vikrant-class aircraft carrier made no contribution at all, getting sunk by countless missiles? Why are those stealth cruisers so strong? They can dive, carry loads of missiles, and have great air defense. After Mecca, will Jekka Group unfold a military transformation in the Navy? No wonder the beautiful country Navy suddenly turned 360 degrees to escape, saying they aren't coming to exercises in the Bay of Bengal, went to visit Saudi Arabia instead. Must have been scared by those cruiser Arsenal ships. No, how could our country, a strong navy, possibly all sink? This is fake news. This must be fake news. The Jekka Group sank our Vikrant-class aircraft carrier. We must retaliate, use nuclear weapons. Let the Jekka Group taste our anger. The war should have ended long ago. Country A and Jekka Group must restrain themselves. Peace should come soon. The internet was boiling. The Jekka Group actively announced the result of the naval battle, leaving Country A's high officials no way to cover it up. Country A now learned of the truth of the Bay of Bengal naval battle, and it's already in a frenzy. Tens of thousands of citizens went out on the streets in the capital, demanding retaliation against the Jekka Group and punishment for the real culprits leading to the annihilation of their navy. By contrast, in Chan country, when the naval battle victory report came, the entire Chan country was plunged into a sea of joy. Firecrackers sounded constantly in every city. Countless citizens spontaneously rushed to the streets, proudly waving their national flag, running to the Jekka Group headquarters building, singing their national anthem, dancing and celebrating gleefully. Beautiful country. Black Palace. Judith hurriedly walked into the president's office. Upon entering the room, President Jesman was already waiting there, and Minister of Navy Federico Guvas was also present, talking with Jesman. Your Excellency, this is the intelligence gathered by our CIA regarding the cruiser Arsenal ships. Judith looked serious as he handed over a piece of intelligence. Jesman glanced through it. The intelligence contained only a few details, all speculative, without actual data support. Why is it so little? Jesman rubbed his temples. The outcome of the Mangjia Bay naval battle and the emergence of the Devourer cruiser Arsenal ship had given him a headache, becoming his main focus lately. The Jekka Group's intelligence work is very tight, and it's difficult for our CIA to infiltrate the high levels. In addition, many important engineering factories of the Jekka Group are underground, making it impossible for satellites to check the construction status of this Devourer cruiser Arsenal ship. Judith shook his head helplessly. Nowadays, it's hard for most countries globally to keep their shipbuilding away from satellite surveillance. But Jekka Group constructs ships underground, and combined with the submarine-like diving capabilities of the cruiser Arsenal ships, CIA couldn't gather any intelligence on them until the Mangjia Bay naval battle exposed them, revealing that Jekka Group was hiding such a formidable weapon. What does your Navy have to say? Jesman turned his gaze towards the Minister of Navy Federico. President, our Navy believes that such cruiser Arsenal ships are excessively powerful. One Arsenal ship has over 500 types of missiles, and the Jekka Group has 6 cruiser Arsenal ships, meaning they possess over 3,000 missiles. Such saturation bombing is very dangerous even for our carrier battle groups if encountered. To deal with this cruiser Arsenal ship, a dual carrier battle group isn't sufficient. We need more carrier battle groups. The best way to tackle such a cruiser Arsenal ship is to discover them first and then use our carrier aircraft with a longer combat radius to sink them beforehand. Carrier battle groups mustn't get within the combat radius of the cruiser Arsenal ships unless necessary. Once we increase the number of our aircraft, we can break through their cruiser arsenal ships' air defense firepower. But currently, the challenge is how to find them. Their submerged stealth capabilities are indeed frustrating. Federico explained, presenting the views of his Navy side. Don't send the dual-carrier battle group to the Mangja Bay now. We cannot take risks before clarity. Jesman nodded. Aircraft carriers are heavy national weapons for their beautiful country. If they rashly entered Mangja Bay and clashed with the Jekka group, resulting in an aircraft carrier being damaged or even sunk, it would undoubtedly cause an uproar domestically. Therefore, after the outcome of the Mangja Bay naval battle was revealed, he immediately ordered their dual-carrier battle group to turn back. All right, and Mr. President, I have a request. Let those military-industrial giants research the cruiser arsenal ships. This new type of naval vessel in this Navy transformation, we also need it. Once developed, our Navy will procure and equip them, and each carrier battle group in the future will have 2 such cruiser arsenal ships as sword-bearers. Our carrier battle group's combat power will certainly become much stronger. Federico made a request, joining the race to develop such new warships. The Jekka group's cruiser arsenal ships demonstrated such brilliance that any capable naval country worldwide hopes to equip such powerful warships. Can it be developed? Jesman recalled the past messes created by military-industrial giants researching mecha. Now, their beautiful country's so-called mecha are still like fools staying in laboratories, unknown when they can be used in actual combat. Now he has every reason to doubt whether following the trend to research cruiser arsenal ships is another scam to deceive research funds. Whether or not it can be developed is another matter. At least the Jekka group has shown us through example that this development direction for warships is correct. Federico shrugged. He didn't promise because he felt the situation was precarious. A cruiser of over 40,000 tons, which has to dive, provide air defense, and carry a large number of missiles. This represents numerous technical challenges that require national effort to tackle, making it exceptionally difficult to resolve. I will draft a proposal later. Jesman knew clearly in his heart that he was pushed into position by the Democratic Party, which also represents the interests of many military-industrial complexes. At this time, he has to give the military-industrial complex some benefits to appease them. As for whether they can develop cruiser arsenal ships, Jesman doesn't hold much hope. Even if they are actually developed and equipped, it would be many years later, and he certainly wouldn't be in the presidential position by then, having nothing to do with him. India is now like ants on a hot pot. They have just sent us an invitation, planning to lease the Andaman Islands to us, allowing us to establish a military base. Judith mentioned another matter. The Andaman Islands, which guard the entrance to the Kra Isthmus Canal. If the area can be occupied, it would unsettle the Jekka group. They have a good plan. If we go to the Andaman Islands, we'll be dragged down with them. Jesman smirked. India's intentions were too obvious. If this proposal came before the appearance of the cruiser arsenal ships, they would have been more than willing to rush to the Andaman Islands to station troops. But now the dual-carrier battle group is not secure in front of 6 arsenal ships. They won't willingly put themselves in danger. The beautiful country is no longer what it was. They no longer have the resolve to fight the Cook group to the end. Ultimately, the interests of the Malacca Strait aren't enough to risk the sinking of their carriers. Then we can only temporarily give up maritime influence over there in the Bay of Bengal and try to appease the allies of the Thousand Island Strategic Alliance. Judith sighed. They've done a lot of work in the Thousand Island Strategic Alliance member countries in Southeast Asia, all of it backed by the force of the beautiful country. Now that the beautiful country doesn't intend to use force to support the Thousand Island Strategic Alliance, the work they did in the past has been in vain. There's no other choice. Jesman also sighed. Despite the beautiful country's strength, it's made many enemies worldwide. The Cook group has the ability to retaliate, and the beautiful country is unwilling to let trade get embroiled in military confrontation. If the Cook group were one of those small countries, the beautiful country would have acted long ago without such hesitation. They covet the vast wealth the Cook group brings in annually, especially the newly launched Tianyuan whitening liquid, which makes their eyes turn green with envy. The 3 exchanged glances, and the office atmosphere grew heavy. The Cook group, this persistent thorn in their side, increasingly feels like a bone stuck in the beautiful country's throat. With the sudden change in the path of the beautiful country's dual-carrier battle group, the originally scheduled Thousand Island Strategic Alliance military exercise was cancelled. Everyone around the world mocked and watched the beautiful country's spectacle. Originally, due to the opening of the Kra Isthmus Canal, which disrupted and harmed the beautiful country's interests in controlling the Malacca Strait, the global Golden Waterway, they were prepared to support Temasek and other Thousand Island Alliance countries with the imposing arrival of the dual-carrier battle group. However, after a series of conflicts and wars initiated by the Cook Group in India, the dual-carrier battle group began to slow down, observing the situation in the Indian Ocean Sea area. Once the Bay of Bengal naval battle ended and the Devourer-class cruiser emerged, the beautiful country immediately withdrew the dual-carrier battle group from the Indian Ocean to the Arabian Sea, claiming a visit to Saudi Arabia that lasted 1 week without moving, completely forgetting the naval exercise in the Bay of Bengal, focusing on better you than me. It was evident to observers that the beautiful country had retreated, unwilling to provoke the Cook Group easily, especially against the cruiser. With the beautiful country's retreat, India's plans fell through, causing chaos for Temasek and other Thousand Island Strategic Alliance countries. They had previously made bold statements to support the beautiful country's large-scale maritime exercise to counter the Cook Group's hegemonic actions. Now, with their only support slipping away quickly, they were left in disbelief. The Navy prepared for the exercise was at a loss, unable to move or stay still. They couldn't possibly conduct a military exercise with their own fleet, which wouldn't intimidate the Cook Group. India's Navy has already taken a beating, with their sunken warships lying in the Bay of Bengal. To avoid losing face, on March 15th, the beautiful country's dual-carrier battle group made a high-profile announcement, urging the Cook Group Navy to exercise restraint, cease reckless actions, and stop infringing upon the maritime interests of coastal countries in the Bay of Bengal or face sanctions. As for why they didn't participate in the Bay of Bengal military exercise, it was claimed that an unexpected carrier malfunction necessitated repairs before returning to the Bay of Bengal once the repairs were done. After checking the position of the dual-carrier battle group, they remained around the Red Sea area, thousands of kilometers away from the Bay of Bengal, threatening the Cook Group from afar, which amused outside spectators and frustrated the Thousand Island Strategic Alliance countries. However, once the Cook Group announced the return of 6 Devourer-class cruisers to the Chan country port, the beautiful country Navy reacted as if instinctively, taking just a week to move the dual-carrier battle group from the Red Sea back to the Indian Ocean. Simultaneously, along the way, they continually issued high-profile statements declaring, "The dual-carrier battle group is the beautiful country Navy's largest frontline deployment force, and will work with allied partners to maintain maritime security and protect a free and open Indo-Pacific region." India was stunned, speechless at the beautiful country's shamelessness. Previously, when the dual-carrier battle group sailed near Colon Port, it was at the doorstep of the Bay of Bengal, but once the naval battle ended in the Bay of Bengal, the group scurried to the Red Sea, disregarding the situation. Now, with the temporary calm over the Bay of Bengal, the beautiful country Navy was making loud noises about their return to the Indian Ocean, fearing ignorance of their re-entry. This absurd back and forth may not have intimidated the Cook Group, but it certainly left the beautiful country's allies in turmoil with their erratic moves. The beautiful country made no further advances, leaving the dual-carrier battle group to linger in the Indian Ocean, ready to act under the guise of safeguarding coastal city security in India if the Cook Group ignored them. Whenever the Cook Group undertook military actions and India urgently called for aid, the beautiful country would immediately adopt a stance of aloofness, withdrawing the dual-carrier battle group back to the Arabian Sea, treating India like a toy. Of course, to give an explanation to their domestic audience and allies, beautiful country proactively took on the role of peacemaker, under the guise of mediating the war between the JECA Group and India, actively sending diplomats to the JECA Group, repeatedly negotiating with them, focusing on being the peacemaker, as if they had totally forgotten the layers of conflicts they had themselves with the JECA Group. Seeing that beautiful country as a backing was unreliable, many countries in the Thousand Island Alliance were quite fed up with beautiful country. At the time of the originally scheduled Mengjia Bay Sea exercises, no country sent warships for the military drill anymore. more Southeast Asian countries began to express goodwill towards the Jekka Group. Among them, Johor, which shares a land border with the Jekka Group, made statements externally, changing their previous tone. They addressed the media. The Jekka Group is a significant pillar for maintaining the Mangjia Bay and Indian Ocean Sea areas, and also an important participant in international order. We support the Jekka Group in maintaining free navigation and security in this sea area. Be aware that before the end of the Mangjia Bay naval battle, their propaganda described the Jekka Group as being the terror axis of the world. Then when the Jekka Group declared war on India and destroyed the Andaman Islands in a night raid, they called the Jekka Group a war butcher. When the Jekka Group annexed the East District 6 states and supported the independence of Assam country, they changed their tone to say the Jekka Group was a destabilizing factor in the region. Later, when the Mangjia Bay naval battle happened, and India's naval main force was completely annihilated, their propaganda line shifted to saying the Jekka Group was an important force for maintaining regional stability. It can be predicted in the future, if the Jekka Group's strength further increases, and they manage to form 7 or 8 cruiser arsenal ship battle groups, the Jekka Group will become the cornerstone of global peace and stability. Johor's capitulation to the Jekka Group was unimaginably swift. After being let down by Beautiful Country, sharing a land border with the Jekka Group, they were most fearful that the Jekka Group would turn their guns and use them as an example to show their might. This effect seen with Johor tends to like jumping between major countries repeatedly. Seeing Beautiful Country shrink back, they couldn't withstand the pressure from the Jekka Group, timely and clever, made the wise choice to immediately submit to the Jekka Group. Not only did they change their external rhetoric, but they also actively sent high-level officials to visit the Jekka Group, aiming to reach a series of important cooperation agreements. The entire country started to lean towards the Jekka Group. Moreover, to show loyalty, Johor audited and purged some of Beautiful Country's representatives and influence within their own country, then cut water and food supplies to Temasek, stopping short of grabbing Temasek by the neck, dragging this prodigal to kneel before the Jekka Group, and say, "Big brother, we are one of you." Temasek's country is very, very small. They have been relying on external resources. Even water and food couldn't be self-sufficient. When the Malacca Strait was blocked by genetically mutated seaweed, if it wasn't for Johor only a channel of water away, extending a helping hand to Temasek, providing them with fresh water and food, people in Temasek would have starved by now. And now Johor, in order to curry favor with the Jekka Group, directly used Temasek as a bargaining chip offered to the Jekka Group first. Not only did they stop the water and food aid to Temasek, they also deployed their troops, stationed them at Temasek's border, waiting for a command. They could occupy the entire Temasek territory. Even without a fight, the mere lack of water and food could bring Temasek to its knees. It's not just Johor. Other Southeast Asian countries also to various extents showed goodwill to the Jekka Group. Just their changing attitudes were not as exaggerated as Johor. In conclusion, with the Jekka Group's great victory at the Mangjia Bay naval battle, and completely crushing India's naval main force, the image of Jekka Group full of martial virtue further spread. Those Southeast Asian countries are shivering, feeling intensely anxious. Most are choosing to actively align with the Jekka Group, not asking for the Jekka Group to treat them well, at least hoping they do not send troops to attack them. With the Beautiful Country's dual-carrier battle group suddenly changing course, the Thousand Island Strategic Alliance military exercise originally scheduled was cancelled. The whole world watched as a joke and spectacle was made of the Beautiful Country. Originally, the opening of the Kra Isthmus Canal touched and disrupted the Beautiful Country's control over the Malacca, a global gold waterway. The Beautiful Country, ready to support several thousand Island Alliance member countries, sent a menacing dual-carrier battle group. However, after a series of conflicts initiated by Jekka Group and India, the dual-carrier battle group started to slow down and watch. When the sea battle in the Bay of Bengal ended and the Devourer-class arsenal ship made its debut, the Beautiful Country noticed the unfavorable situation and immediately withdrew the dual-carrier battle group, claiming to visit Saudi Arabia for a week-long stay, completely forgetting the Bay of Bengal naval exercise, prioritizing saving its own skin. It's clear to any discerning eye that the Beautiful Country was backing down, not daring to easily provoke Jekka Group in the Bay of Bengal, especially against the arsenal ship. With the Beautiful Country's retreat, India's plans fell through, leaving countries like Temasek within the Thousand Island Strategic Alliance in disarray. Previously, to coordinate with the beautiful country's large-scale naval exercise, countering JECA Group's domineering actions, they made various bold statements. Now their only support has quickly slipped away, leaving them in a state of confusion. The Navy, ready to participate in the exercise, neither acts nor refrains, as they couldn't hope to intimidate JECA Group with their own fleet alone. Not to mention India's Navy is battered into a pulp, with their main battleships sunk in the deep waters of the Bay of Bengal. Perhaps to save face, on March 15th, the beautiful country responded publicly, demanding JECA Group's Navy show restraint and not interfere with the maritime interests of all coastal countries in the Bay of Bengal, or else the dual-carrier battle group would sanction them. As for why they didn't participate in the Bay of Bengal exercise, it was because of a sudden malfunction in the dual-carrier battle group, requiring repair, and they'd return to the Bay of Bengal once completed. Upon checking the location of the dual-carrier battle group, well, it was still in the vicinity of the Arabian Sea, thousands of kilometers away from the Bay of Bengal. Responding to JECA Group's threat from thousands of kilometers away made it laughable to the outside onlookers and left Thousand Island Strategic Alliance member countries full of complaints. However, when JECA Group's 6 Devourer-class cruisers set off on their return journey, heading back to Bangkok port, in response, the beautiful country's Navy acted reflexively, taking only a week to deploy the dual-carrier battle group out of the Red Sea, rushing back to the Indian Ocean. During this journey, they repeatedly issued high-profile statements, claiming, "The dual-carrier battle group is the largest frontline deployment of the beautiful country's Navy, and will work with allies to maintain maritime security and protect the free and open Indo-Pacific region." India was dumbfounded by the beautiful country's brazenness. Evidently, when the dual-carrier battle group was docked at Colon Port, it was only a step away from the Bay of Bengal, but when the Bay of Bengal sea battle ended, the group dashed away to the Red Sea, ignoring the region. Now that the Bay of Bengal has temporarily calmed down, the beautiful country's Navy loudly proclaimed their presence, fearing no one would know they had returned to the Indian Ocean. Whether this comical about-face intimidated JECA Group is unknown, but the beautiful country's allies were certainly thrown into chaos by their unpredictable actions. The beautiful country didn't advance further. The dual-carrier battle group continued patrolling the Indian Ocean. If JECA Group ignored them, they'd act under the guise of protecting India's coastal cities. Should JECA Group take action and India request urgent aid from the beautiful country, the latter would quickly adopt a not-my-business attitude, withdrawing the dual-carrier battle group to the Arabian Sea, treating India like a toy. Of course, to account to both domestic and allied parties, the beautiful country took on the role of mediator, ostensibly to mediate between JECA Group and India, actively sending representatives to JECA Group, repeatedly urging both parties to sit down and talk, as if oblivious to their own intense disputes with JECA Group. Seeing the beautiful country as an unreliable backer, many Thousand Island Alliance countries grew weary of their entanglement. When the originally scheduled Bay of Bengal Sea exercise arrived, no country sent warships to participate. More Thousand Island Strategic Alliance members began showing goodwill towards JECA Group. Among them, Johor, which shares a land border with JECA Group, changed its tone, telling the media, "JECA Group is an important pillar for maintaining the freedom and security of navigation in the Bay of Bengal and surrounding sea areas, and a significant participant in the international order. We support JECA Group's maintenance of free passage and security in these waters." Before the Bay of Bengal sea battle ended, they propagandized that JECA Group was the world's evil axis. After JECA Group declared war on India, launched a night raid to destroy the Andaman Islands, they labeled JECA Group as a war demon. When JECA Group annexed the East District 6 states and supported Assam country's independence, they called JECA Group a regional destabilizing factor. Later, when the Bay of Bengal sea battle concluded and India's main naval force was completely defeated, their narrative on JECA Group shifted to a force maintaining regional stability, an important participant in the international order. The future is foreseeable. If the strength of the JECA Group is further enhanced, forming 7 or 8 cruiser arsenal ship combat groups, the image of the JECA Group will become the cornerstone of Blue Star's peace and stability in their eyes. Johor's speed in sliding and kneeling to the JECA Group is beyond imagination. After being stood up by the beautiful country, this country bordering the Jekka group is most afraid that the Jekka group will turn its gun around and attack it. A small country like Johor always likes to jump between big countries. Seeing the beautiful country's retreat, they couldn't withstand the pressure from the Jekka group and wisely chose to immediately submit to the Jekka group. Not only did they change their tone in external publicity, but they also actively sent representatives to visit the Jekka group, aiming to reach a comprehensive cooperation, and the entire country began to lean towards the Jekka group. Moreover, to show loyalty, Johor accounted for a batch of beautiful country's political spokespersons in their country and cut off water and food for Temasek, almost choking Temasek's neck and bringing this renegade that repeatedly provoked the Jekka group to the front of the Jekka group to bow down and say, "Big brother, we are your own." Temasek's country is incredibly small. All their resources rely on external imports. Even water and food cannot be self-sufficient. After the Malacca Strait was blocked by genetic mutant kelp, if not for Johor just across the water providing aid in fresh water and food, Temasek would have starved to death. Now, Johor aims to please the Jekka group and has directly presented Temasek as a pledge to the Jekka group. Not only did they stop aiding Temasek with water and food, but they also dispatched their own military. With just one order, they could occupy Temasek's entire territory without even fighting. Simply through water and food shortages, they could render Temasek half alive. Not only Johor, but other Thousand Island Strategic Alliance member countries have also showed favor to the Jekka group to varying degrees. But their speed of turnaround is not as exaggerated as Johor's. In short, with the Jekka group's great victory in the Mengja Bay Sea battle, annihilating the main forces of the country A Navy, the image of the Jekka group being filled with martial virtue spread further. Those Southeast Asian countries are all trembling, feeling terrified, and most of them actively choose to lean towards the Jekka group, not asking for much favor but at least hoping to avoid sending troops against them. Bangkok Port. This is Siam's largest port and one of the world's top 20 container ports, bearing the role of importing and exporting many goods for Southeast Asia. At noon on March 18th, Bangkok Port was already crowded with people. Hundreds of thousands of crowds and civilians from Siam, Chan Country, and Nan, and other Southeast Asian countries, as well as tourists from Hua Country, Malbar, and even the beautiful country. Additionally, global media reporters had already set up their long guns and short cannons at the dock. In front of the dock, a ceremonial guard and military band, dressed in crisp military uniforms, were ready and focused on the sea. More soldiers formed a human wall in front of the crowds to prevent them from crossing the cordon. On site, several Spider main battle mechas and genetic warriors maintained order, but these former stars did not attract too much attention today. Because today is the day the Devourer-class deep-diving cruiser returns, and Jekka Group specially opened this port to the public and media. Giovanni Herman had a camera hanging around his neck. He is a reporter from the beautiful country and a CIA peripheral informant, using his identity to gather some open intelligence for the CIA. Why hasn't it arrived yet? Giovanni waited with some anxiousness. The CIA was generous with its funding this time, and he wanted to take a few more photos of the cruiser arsenal ships. Crack! Suddenly, the crowd parted to make a path, and accompanied by numerous genetic warriors, Su Jie, with Lu Yingying, stepped into Bangkok Port. Even this big shot has come. Giovanni's heart skipped, though he was only collecting some open intelligence. He was still working for the CIA. Seeing Su Jie, this big hero that the CIA tried all means to eliminate, inexplicably made him fearful. If discovered, he might never return to the beautiful country. Isn't that Johor's president? Giovanni saw a 50-60-year-old man next to Su Jie, nodding and bowing. Giovanni recognized the man as the president of Johor, unexpectedly rushing to serve Su Jie. Commander Su, you see, our Johor sincerely invites the Jekka Group to develop business in our country, promoting long-term friendship between us. At this moment, in Giovanni's eyes, Johor's president Dato Ho had his face painted with a flattering smile, cautiously speaking. Johor previously followed behind the beautiful country, using its power to insult the Jekka Group, which was satisfying at the time, but now it's time for them to pay the price. Su Jie stood at the dock, facing the sea, and smiled gently. Long-term friendship? Your Johor may cling to my Jekka group today, but tomorrow you may run to the beautiful country and say the same thing with the same tone. With these words, cold sweat broke out on Datu Ho's forehead. Mr. Datu Ho, your sincerity hardly resembles the manner of cooperation. Now that you have made the decision, you should better recognize reality soon. Lu Yingying glanced at Datu Ho and made it clear. The premise of cooperation with us is Johor must open up no more than 5 of its sea and air military bases to our Jekka group, allowing our army stations and deployment of air force and missiles. Johor's military under your management must accept guidance from our Jekka group, military procurement aligned. All major ports in Johor must allow our warships to dock for supply and rest, without prior notice to your side. Datu Ho trembled, feeling both anger and sorrow at this extortion. The anger was due to Jekka Group's insatiable greed. Johor was not a defeated country. Why should they accept stationed troops? The sorrow stemmed from the fact that Johor had limited choices left. They originally hoped to rely on the beautiful country as a backing, but the backing ran away first, leaving them to face the formidable military might of Jekka Group head-on. Among them, Johor, which shares a land border with Jekka Group, was at the forefront. They had to face those wolf-like spider-main battle mechas, genetic warriors, magic bird fighters, and even cruiser arsenal ships. Just thinking about it, Datu Ho felt a wave of helplessness surge in his heart. This was simply a terrifying existence that Johor could not resist. Johor's army, in front of Jekka Group, was like sheep facing a fierce tiger, only able to tempt the other side with their tender flesh and blood. The more he thought, the more desperate he became. Datu Ho couldn't help but recall something that the Temasek president once said. Too close to the Jekka Group, too far from heaven, is the tragedy of all Southeast Asian countries. Now, this phrase had come true for Johor. Su Jie slightly turned around, looking at Datu Ho with his changing expressions, and calmly asked, Datu Ho, have you studied the history of China? I've read some. Datu Ho was puzzled, showing a hint of doubt on his face. Then you should know that there's an old Chinese saying, how can others sleep peacefully beside your bed? Su Jie's casual remark made Datu Ho's knees weaken, as he nervously swallowed hard. Actually, I prefer to take what I want with my own hands. After all, it's not my house, so it doesn't matter if it gets smashed, as long as I get what I want. Su Jie's face carried a gentle smile of a spring breeze, but his words made Datu Ho shiver all over, eyes filled with fear. Datu Ho understood clearly that if he did not agree to the harsh conditions of the Jekka Group, Su Jie could order the great army to march south immediately, turning Johor into ruins with their artillery. I am willing to cooperate. Johor is willing to cooperate with all of Jekka Group's arrangements, and from now on, everything we do will be centered around Jekka Group with no dissent. If Jekka Group tells Johor to go east, we will definitely not go west. Datu Ho struggled for a full minute before finally speaking these words, filled with unwillingness and frustration, because Datu Ho knew that his country's military couldn't stop Jekka Group. If he didn't agree, they could forcefully compel them with military force, and the terms would be even more demanding. Since resistance was impossible, they might as well lay down and enjoy it, and at least suffer a bit less. You are a smart person. I like making friends with smart people. Su Jie patted Datu Ho on the shoulder, showing his appreciation for him. I am honored, deeply honored by Commander Su's regard. Our two countries are like family. Ha ha. Ahaha. Datu Ho accompanied with a forced smile, but his smile was uglier than crying, like a young wife who had suffered endless grievances. But Johor chose the wrong side, and what's more, it borders Jekka Group. Originally, half of the island territory didn't border Jekka. Being separated by the ocean, they thought they were relatively safe under the Navy's protection. However, once Jekka's cruiser arsenal ships appeared, none of their territory was safe. If Jekka Group really wanted to attack, they wouldn't even need distant condemnation tactics. The army could march south and obliterate them in a matter of minutes. As the saying goes, man is the knife and I am the fish. This is the real portrayal of Johor today. Not long after the conversation with Datu Ho ended, unexpected changes occurred on the calm sea. Sunlight poured down through the shimmering water, casting a fascinating play of light and shadow over the sea. Suddenly, water splashed everywhere, pushing aside thousands of tons of seawater, as if a mountain had abruptly risen in the ocean. A black whale seeming to leap through the waves, a dark military ship surfaced on the sea. The massive impact even stirred up giant waves, with 8 octopus-like living arms at the bottom thrashing the water, rolling up towering waves and emitting a deep, powerful hum. After the leading Ilova River deep-diving cruiser appeared, the ocean again raised 5 waves, with 5 deep-diving cruisers surfacing in succession like giant whales. After surfacing, the Ilova River cruised towards the dock, while the other 5 Devourer-class deep-diving cruisers returned to the open sea to patrol vigilantly, not approaching the dock to prevent any incidents, ready to alert, counterattack, or dive into the deep sea if danger arose. The sound of the long whistle roared as if the sea god was angrily roaring. As the Ilova River deep-diving cruiser surfaced near the dock, a strong mechanical scent mixed with the salty sea breeze rushed in, with the sunlight shining on the ship's body, and the contrast between the cold steel and the vast ocean starkly clear. The scene was utterly awe-inspiring, a cruiser 246 meters long, 37 meters wide, with a full load displacement of 45,500 tons, coupled with the towering superstructure. Calculating from the keel, the overall height of the Devourer-class deep-diving cruiser exceeded 50 meters, equivalent to the height of a 16-story building. Imagine such a mobile high-rise, 246 meters long, leap from beneath the sea. The picture alone spells out how extravagant and stunning the sight was. The on-site audience couldn't help but gasp, their pupils quaking, utterly overwhelmed by this remarkable spectacle. Journalists from various media outlets pushed their shutter buttons excitedly, capturing this precious moment with cameras, preparing to feature the mighty stance of the Devourer cruiser as the headline for tomorrow's newspapers. Datu Ho's eyes widened in astonishment. At this moment, he no longer regretted agreeing to the terms proposed by the Jekka Group. Such military and naval strength are completely beyond the capacity of their small Johor to contend with. Giovanni kept pressing the camera, providing photo resources to the CIA, gazing at those massive and beautifully designed cruiser arsenal ships with his heart pounding like drums, in sheer amazement. The visual impact of these cruisers' arsenal ships even surpassed the intimidation brought by aircraft carriers. After surfacing, all 6 Devourer cruisers fully activated, flaunting 8 30mm 11-barrel close-in guns, 203mm dual-mounted cannons, and numerous missile launch units, displaying a posture of full readiness and showing muscles to the outside world. Beneath the sea, 8 hefty living arms twisted and coiled, each over 100 meters long, resembling colossal sky-swallowing serpents, stirring the seawater into swirling whirlpools, rendering spectators dry-mouthed. On the superstructure, 158 crew members and 15 genetic warriors in neat steps walked out, standing in white naval uniforms along both sides of the deck swept by seawater, with ramrod-straight postures like javelins, saluting towards the cheering crowd at the dock. My God! It's so damn spectacular. Is this the cruiser arsenal ship? It's gigantic beyond imagination. This length rivals a battleship. Wow, 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 what is this all about, with the tentacles and steel missiles? Just looking at the exterior tells me this thing is incredibly powerful. Fake. Are you sure this isn't alien technology? A biological ship intertwined with steel. It's beyond imagination. Freaking awesome. Those foreign tourists who saw the Devourer-class deep-diving cruiser couldn't help but curse, their hearts struck with shock beyond measure. Anyone witnessing a warship for the first time, even a ship of a few thousand tons, would feel overwhelmed, let alone such a ship representing Blue Star's latest technology, weighing over 40,000 tons, comparable in size to mighty battleships. Especially in outward appearance, the Devourer-class deep-diving cruiser's pleasing look even surpasses flat-decked aircraft carriers, holding its own even when compared to battleship aesthetics. Because there are also 800-meter-long living arms, the sight of those biological arms would make goosebumps fall off all over the ground, instilling a sense of sheer terror within many, with them genuinely fearing this cruiser, where fear is the highest praise for a warship. Compared to those foreign tourists, the The people under Jekka Group's reign are far more pure-hearted. It's a warship. It's our country's warship. It's amazing, truly amazing. Woo-woo. Never thought I'd see our country's mighty warship in my lifetime. God bless our country. Thank you, Heaven. Thank you, Jekka Group. Thank you, the great Commander Su. Quick, take a picture for me. When I'm old, I want to tell my grandchildren the story of the Mengjia Bay Sea Battle. Their grandfather witnessed Chan country's incredible might. This is our warship. I reckon it's not inferior to beautiful country's aircraft carriers. Haha. Our navy is #1 under the sky. Thunderous cheers erupted among the crowds, with numerous citizens waving national flags, their faces flushed red, uncontrollably jostling forward, wishing to get closer to their country's mighty warship. The soldiers responsible for security could only keep persuading them to exercise restraint. But even the soldiers themselves, gazing at the 6 Devourer-class deep-diving cruisers floating on the sea, felt a sense of pride and honor. The crowd surged, with many citizens looking at the mighty cruisers on the azure sea like towering mountains, their emotions unable to settle. The Navy is one of the key indicators of a nation's strength. In the past, the great British Empire's Navy was invincible across the oceans, creating colonies everywhere. Known as the British Empire, the world's dominator at that time. After World War II, the beautiful country took the crown from the Great British Empire, becoming the second Blue Star dominator, and its possession of 12 nuclear-powered aircraft carrier battle groups is the most striking impression of the beautiful country. The aircraft carrier battle group is the heart of the beautiful country. Whenever emergencies occur, the president invariably asks, "Where are our carriers?" showing the impact of the battle group. No matter how strong the army is, it feels primarily focused on homeland defense. Whereas a strong navy feels like a strategic offensive threat, akin to exposed fangs. Western maritime civilizations, with their powerful navies and cannons, have invaded countless countries, and virtually every nation has suffered bullying from battleships and cannons. The Navy's expansionism is deeply imprinted in the minds of the world's peoples. At the same time, a powerful navy is also a symbol of a major country. Large warships are toys only accessible to great and powerful nations. The countries of the Southeast Peninsula have been weak for a long time, especially the Zen country people, who experienced constant civil wars before the Jekka Group took charge. Now able to see their own strong warships, pride and joy erupted almost out of their chests, their excitement evident. Some even shed tears, unable to speak, tears of overwhelming emotion. As the Alova River cruiser slowly docked at Bangkok Pier, the cheers reached a climax. Cannons long prepared at the pier fired in succession, military bands began performing, and the honor guards, with solemn expressions, celebrated the victorious return of the Navy soldiers. The cheers of the citizens on the pier rose wave after wave. When the soldiers on the cruiser disembarked, many young women screamed, broke through the soldiers' guard line, placed wreaths on the Navy soldiers, and offered warm kisses, making many young spectators envious with the seed of joining the military planted in their hearts. Peng Hongta, the commander of the First Fleet, led the way with 6 captains, coming before Su Jie amid the continuous flash of reporters' cameras. Commander Peng Hongta of the First Fleet, bringing back the First Fleet's entire Navy personnel, salutes the great Commander Su. "We did not disappoint you, Commander Su. In this battle, we sank the Vikrant aircraft carrier and 30 other main battleships of India, bringing peace to Mengjia Bay with a great victory." While speaking, Peng Hongta handed a gift box to Su Jie. Upon opening it, inside was a fine sidearm belonging to Kumar, the fleet commander of India. "You've worked hard. You truly deserve the name Jiao Long of the Sea." Su Jie adjusted Peng Hongta's uniform slightly, then picked up the sidearm, examined it for a moment, and accepted it. "I like this gift very much, and I think you will like this gift too." Su Jie smiled and took a medal from the tray held by Lu Yingying, personally pinning it on Peng Hongta's shoulder, representing his honor. "Thank you, Commander Su. Next, please allow me to present the captives." Peng Hongta smiled, and under his command, the prisoners of war from India on board the Alova River cruiser were quickly escorted down. These prisoners from India were not mistreated and did not appear dejected. Upon descending, they looked around, seemingly pondering where they had been taken. But seeing the vast crowd at the pier, these Indian prisoners quickly understood their situation, accepted the arrangement dutifully, and toured the streets as part of the Jekka group's show of force. Among the parading prisoners was Kumar, the fleet commander, who wore a grim expression, lowered his head, and dared not face anyone. Considering his prestigious status, now a prisoner, paraded like a spectacle, the shame inside him made him wish to find a hole to disappear into. Also parading were seized weapons, military flags, and other trophies. The most significant item was a medium-sized escort ship from India, towed to Bangkok port, open for citizens below to visit. This escort ship was hit by anti-ship missiles during the Battle of Mengjiao Bay, incapacitated on the sea, and then dragged back by the Jekka group's navy. A large number of citizens enthusiastically boarded this Indian escort ship to take photos, uploading them to the internet. Once these photos and videos were published, netizens from other countries mostly expressed envy and watched the spectacle, but India's reaction was different. Upon learning via the internet that their warship was captured by the Jekka group and exhibited at Bangkok port for public viewing, Indian netizens quickly erupted in anger, flooded with outrage, and flocked to the photo comments to engage in verbal clashes with the citizens of the Jekka group. Tomorrow, those media reporters will probably write a bunch of nonsense, saying we're being ostentatious and domineering. Lu Yingying, standing beside Su Jie, watching the prisoners being paraded, couldn't help but comment. Ostentatious? We won the battle, so why shouldn't we flaunt it? This is our honor. Su Jie smiled and pointed to the surrounding citizens, saying to Lu Yingying, "Look around. They are all cheering for us," indicating that what we are doing is right. Only losing a war requires humility, hiding one's head like a turtle. I want the world to hear our voice. From now on, in this vast ocean, there will be a place for our Jekka group's navy, and no one can ignore us anymore. Datu Ho heard Su Jie's words and didn't dare to speak. Only a strong bitterness welled up in his heart. How he wished for such a grand scene to appear in their Johor. What a wonderful thing that would be. Unfortunately, such things can ultimately only be dreamt of. In reality, Johor is just a small, weak nation being bullied by the Jekka group. That's really how it is. Lu Yingying felt a shock in her heart. Looking at the surrounding crowd, she thought that what Su Jie said might truly be a universal truth. Whether it was the unveiling of warships, awarding of medals, or offering of captives, the Jekka group didn't hide anything, openly displaying everything in front of major media, making journalists excited, for they enjoyed this kind of sensational behavior of the Jekka group. This Jekka group is indeed arrogant, and Su Jie even more so. No wonder he's called the Southeast Asian Emperor, the Great Dictator. Giovanni, seeing the parade of captives, couldn't help but internally criticize Su Jie. It's already the 21st century, yet the Jekka group still conducts such futile parades of captives. Giovanni even thought to himself, if there was an execution gate here, Su Jie would probably make a spectacle of executing enemy chiefs at the gate, shocking everyone with a public display. Despite his criticisms, Giovanni had to admit that the effect of parading captives was quite effective. The people at the scene were all jubilant, pointing and laughing at the captives from India, taking pictures, and the support for the Jekka group surely increased significantly. Looking at the high-spirited crowd and the majestic Devourer-class deep-diving cruisers, Giovanni had to admit that regardless of how vile Jekka group's actions were, being labeled as the scourge of the world by Western countries, they indeed had the capital to be arrogant. From those Devourer-class cruisers, it's apparent each warship was intact, without any damage. Although Western media propagated that Jekka group succeeded in annihilating the main force of Country A Navy through ambush. Yet these warships showed no signs of damage, which indicates that Jekka group's warships completed the annihilation of the Country A Navy without any damage. What does this signify? This is a display of dominance in terms of strength. Otherwise, it wouldn't be possible. Who knows how much longer this guy will continue his rampage before stopping. Giovanni sighed, looking at the Alova River Devourer cruiser, as imposing as a mountain at the dock. He had a premonition that the Jekka group would not choose to stop now. But unfortunately, their own aircraft carrier battle group couldn't come over, otherwise, They would surely severely punish and strike down the arrogance of the Jekka group. Giovanni automatically ignored the fact that their beautiful country aircraft carrier battle group wasn't unable to come over, but didn't dare to come over. With the end of the Jekka group's parade of captives, various countries' media extensively reported, labeling Jekka with terms like brutal, savage, and tyrant. But the fact remains that no one could or dared to ignore Jekka group's naval prowess. Country A used their annihilated naval main force to prove the rise of the Jekka group's navy. Just like episodes in past history, Spain's invincible fleet's demise founded the Royal Navy of the British Empire's reputation, opening the chapter of the British Empire. The Russian Empire fleet's defeat at the Tsushima Strait allowed Japan to join the ranks of the great powers, making a once small country ambitious and arrogant. Japan's combined fleet was sunk in the Pacific, contributing to the greatest naval battle in human history, further establishing the beautiful country as the maritime hegemon of Blue Star, still reigning today. Now it's Jekka Group's turn. Country A used their naval corpses to build the formidable reputation of the Jekka Group Navy. A new maritime power rises in the Mengja Bay, Southeast Asia Sea area, and the Indian Ocean, like a rising sun, full of vigor and ambition. Early morning, Johor border. The heavy sound of tracks resounded along the borderline, alarming the soldiers stationed at Johor's border post to go check the situation, only to be left jaw-dropped by the scene before them. Thousands of armored vehicles gathered into a massive torrent of steel. Tanks rolled over the land, grinding dew-coated weeds into fragments within the steel tracks. On the wheeled and tracked armored vehicles, machine guns and anti-tank missiles were clearly visible, reflecting the sunlight. Behind them, more heavy trucks either carried fully armed soldiers or were filled to the brim with logistical supplies. The most striking were the 12-meter-tall Spider main battle mechas, towering over all the armored vehicles, unmistakably prominent in the steel torrent. Their dark 203mm barrels, bristling like a porcupine with machine guns and cannons, induced an involuntary terror and heart palpitations at just a glance. This massive steel torrent counted over 100,000 people, composed of infantry divisions, armored divisions, mechanized combined brigades, and mechanical combat brigades. What they saw was only the vanguard. The entire steel torrent stretched for dozens of kilometers, a truly magnificent sight. Just this one force, it's no exaggeration to say, could sweep through the majority of countries worldwide. Johor's military strength, too, lay within the range that this steel torrent could flatten. As a result, upon witnessing such a terrifying steel torrent, the stationed soldiers at Johor's border post were dumbfounded with fear. Jekka Group is attacking. Quick, go inform the back. No, let's run first. There won't be time if we're late. What are you standing there for? Run quickly. The Johor soldiers, like cats with tails stepped on, turned their fearful eyes to run, scrambling towards the cars parked at the post, ready to retreat and escape. As for resistance, a few dozen soldiers, how could they stop the massive army of Jekka Group? They had not the slightest spirit of sacrifice for the country, choosing escape as their first option. Hold on. All of you stop. Why are you running? Jekka Group isn't here to attack us. At that moment, an officer at the post came rushing out after receiving a call, stopping the soldiers. Just received orders. Military High Command has already given instructions, ordering us to open the border passage. Let these Jekka Group soldiers enter. We are now in a strategic alliance with Jekka Group. They are here to help us reorganize. The officer quickly explained the situation, because if he didn't, all his soldiers would run away, leaving him disgraced. Ah! Why didn't you say so earlier? I knew it. They made such a commotion because they got approval. Hearing this, the Johor soldiers sighed in relief, the tension on their faces dissolving considerably. Once they understood, at the officer's arrangement, the Johor soldiers stood at the roadside, lined up on both sides, holding rifles like honor guards, to welcome Jekka Group's army. A moment later, armored vehicles roared past them. Fine sand stirred up by the tracks sprinkled onto them. But they had no complaints, only watching in awe as the armored vehicles passed by. When the Spider main battle mechas moved past, The genetic warriors clad in biological spiders on the spider mecha's backs swept their gaze over, and with just one look, it made these Johor soldiers shiver uncontrollably, feeling as if they had just returned from the gates of hell. At this point, they felt fortunate not to engage Jekka Group in battle. Otherwise, with their country's strength, how could they withstand such a formidable iron army? Jekka Group's steel torrent crossed the border on March 22nd, swaggering into Johor. And Johor made no obstruction nor resistance, allowing Jekka Group's army to rampage freely. As the external and internal public opinion surged, President of Johor Datu Ho proactively stepped forward to explain to the public. We Johor have reached a strategic alliance with Jekka Group. Our two sides will reach highly close connections in trade, military, and politics. Therefore, Jekka Group's entry this time is by our invitation. In the future, Jekka Group will station troops in our country to better guide and assist our military development. Datu Ho's statement unsurprisingly caused a huge uproar domestically and internationally, because his stance clearly showed that Johor had officially leaned towards Jekka Group. Moreover, this wasn't just some ambiguous sway. Inviting others for large-scale troop stationing means something entirely different. It equates to Johor fully submitting and aligning with Jekka Group. The external sound of voices was loud, and there were even more dissenting voices within Johor, with public protests and demonstrations erupting upon hearing the news. Previously, they were still an independent country, but suddenly being taken over by Jekka Group with its army stationed. What's going on? In response to these continuous waves of protests, Johor decisively took measures, deploying military and police to disperse and suppress the protesting crowds. Johor's army might not withstand Jekka Group, but it still excelled at internal suppression, easily quelling the protests. While suppressing, President Datu Ho constantly explained to the outside, claiming Jekka Group is here to help us, not to intervene. It remains us Johor people leading Johor. Jekka Group won't interfere.